It would help if I would unmute. So good afternoon. I have 2 o'clock, so we'll get the golf rules presentation started for you all. I am Amy Boozer, one of the associate commissioners here with the league office, and I do oversee golf as one of the sports I oversee. You can see I have listed for you my office phone number as well as my cell phone number. Office hours are from 7:30 until 4 p.m. each day. And then after hours, I know sometimes we have questions when we're at matches and so forth. So I did put my cell phone number there for you as well, in case you need to get in contact with me. And my email is listed for you. So that information is how you can contact me if you need me during your season. All right, we're going to begin with the general slides that we cover with all of our sports. So our coaching requirements, this is for all coaches. This is for head coaches, assistant coaches, and any volunteer coaches that you have. It's important that you share this information with them, as they are required to every year take these 4 courses. These courses are listed on nfhslearn.com. It's the concussion course, heat acclimatization course, sudden cardiac arrest, and protecting students from abuse. So again, coaches every year have to take these courses. All right, every 2 years, coaches have to have CPR and AED certification. So you want to make sure you're up to date with that. And then we just have 2 courses that are recommended. You do not have to take them. It's just recommended if you want to. The COVID-19, that course was required last year. It's only recommended this year. And then the collapsed athlete. So that's the requirements for coaches. And I jumped right in this, so let me pause for a second and just make everybody aware. If you have questions during the meeting, just if you would put those in the chat, I'll periodically just kind of check the chat questions and respond to those as we go through the presentation. Also, there will be a poll question that comes up during the presentation that checks your attendance. So when you see that pop up, make sure to answer the poll question just so we can verify. And then at the end, we will do one other thing to verify your attendance. We don't want to overlook anybody. We want to make sure we have everybody accounted for this meeting today. So again, if you have any questions, just throw those in the chat and I will answer those as we go. All right, moving on. If for some reason you do have a player that has suffered a concussion, there is a return to play protocol for all of our sports. Basically, they cannot return until they have been approved by a healthcare professional. And you can see we have those healthcare professionals listed there, and they all must be licensed in South Carolina. Some medical info, the wet bulb globe thermometer. You should have someone at your school that will be monitoring the wet bulb globe thermometer. That will inform you of what you can and cannot do at practice based on the heat and so forth of the day. There are some restrictions that do limit what you can do or if you can be out on the course, but you should have someone at your school that does monitor and sends out information regarding the wet bulb globe thermometer readings. Physicals, physicals should be dated April 1, 2021 to be valid. So any physical that is April 1, 2021 moving forward is valid for this school year. If someone got a physical on March 30th, 2021, that is not valid. So that would not be accepted. We run into that a lot of times. You know, they argue, but yes, they would have to get a new physical. And this says check with your AD to make sure you have an emergency action plan. Well, we know our athletic directors probably are not the ones that have emergency action plans for the golf courses you're playing at. So you just need to have conversations with that golf course, with that local golf course and the pro there, and just make sure you are aware of what procedures to use if an emergency comes up. And we're not always referring to emergencies just with your student athletes. It could be an emergency with spectators that do come to your contest. So just make sure you are familiar with that, where an AED is located, how to get it out onto the course quickly. We know golf courses are spread out. So that's some important information that you need to make sure you are aware of and share that information with your players as well, as they may be the ones that are needing to call the pro shop to get that information to them to get help out on the course immediately. All right, sportsmanship. And we have been talking to all of our sports about sportsmanship. And as a coach, what you permit, you promote. So what you permit your players to do on the course, you're promoting. And I hope all of us are encouraging our players to be good sports, show good sportsmanship throughout all matches. But sometimes that's not always the case. I do get phone calls about golf. I do get phone calls about how players use profanity, just some of the comments that they sometimes can be making on the course. Sometimes our players are out there and there's not coaches out there and they observe the other player possibly throwing a club or something. So as coaches, it's very important that we educate our players on what good sportsmanship is and how to, when it is adversity, how do they respond? We have to remember that they are kids. So we have to educate them. We have to teach them on what your expectations are on as a coach on what you want your players to do. So please take ownership of your players' behavior, as well as any coaches that assist you. Making unsporting remarks towards opponents, that should not be tolerated or encouraged. And we know there's not a lot of cheering in golf, but there are cheers for when our teams are up on the putting greens and make putts and so forth. So just make sure our cheers are they're appropriate, simply not making comments or anything like that towards the opponent or anything like that. Also, this kind of goes to social media. A lot of you use social media. Just make sure you're highlighting positive things on social media. You're not using it, making negative or degrading remarks about opponents or even the high school league for that matter, or whatever. So that is considered unsportsmanlike conduct, and we will address it. So just make sure you're using social media to promote your team and highlight the accomplishments of your team and your student athletes. All right, ejections. And this is kind of unique with golf because you as coaches are the officials. You are the officials. It's unique with golf and tennis a little bit because you don't have officials really overseeing it. But if an ejection were to occur, so if you witness, let's say, a player taking their club and throwing it, that would obviously warrant for an ejection to occur. Now, I have been at the league office starting year 6. I have not had an ejection, but I do know that there has been one. So it has occurred. But as coaches, you would be the ones that would have to implement this ejection, meaning you would have to address the opposing coach. You would have to make them aware of the behavior that was exhibited. You would have to send to our office the information that led to the ejection. If your player is the one that is ejected, you would be required to submit the form and fill out and send to our office. For golf, it is a 2-game suspension. So that would be a 2 play date suspension because golf does play play dates. And I talked just briefly about social media, and just again want to say, I encourage you to use social media to promote. It can be very useful. It can be a great tool, but be mindful of who's monitoring that account. If it's not you, if you're using an athlete or maybe your school has someone that follows all of the athletic teams, just make sure you're monitoring and make sure that you are being spotlighted in a positive way. All right, this is new for 21-22. Varsity teams are allowed 2 scrimmages and 1 jamboree. This is across the board for all sports. So varsity teams are only allowed 2 scrimmages and 1 jamboree. Sub-varsity teams are allowed 1 scrimmage and 1 jamboree. Now, jamboree is a game-like scrimmage where no team can play more than 1/2 of a regular contest in the event. So for golf, that's going to be 4 holes. So jamborees may not benefit all of our sports. And, we understand that, but you do have that opportunity if it's somebody very close and maybe y'all want to get together and play 4 holes for a jamboree, you can do that. But that's what constitutes a jamboree for golf. All right, moving into our open and closed season. And again, this is information that we share with all of our coaches and all of our clinics. And I'll be honest, the open and closed season, it's very important that you understand what you can and what you cannot do during that time. We have violations across the board in all sports of open closed season. So we're trying to make sure we are getting the correct information out there, making sure you understand what you can and cannot do so you will not have one of these violations. So open season, you have 20 days of practice. School facilities, which none of us have golf courses, but you would have practice at your local golf course. It is open to all students and it cannot be mandatory. So for girls golf, your open season would be May 1st through May 31st. During that window, you have 20 days of practice if you choose. So you can take them to the golf course, you can work on golf skills, you can work with your student athletes during that time. Once girls golf is over this year, so once you're eliminated from the qualifiers or you didn't make the qualifiers or state championship ends, you then enter closed season. So during closed season, the coach cannot work with any of your athletes on sports specific skills. So you cannot work with them on golf related skills. Students are not allowed to use school facilities, which again, we've talked about that school facilities, we don't have golf courses. Obviously, if you have students and they're going to their local country club on their own, that is fine, but a coach cannot be there with them and they cannot set up a practice for all of the team to come out there. That would be a violation. You can do strength and conditioning activities during this time if you want, but again, no sport specific skills or training can occur. If you have a golf pro or if you are a golf pro, you cannot work with your student athletes during this time. You can't give them lessons. You can't work with them on their swings. That would be a violation. So during closed season, that is for any coach that coaches with your team cannot work with students from your school. All right, June and July, this is open season for all of our sports with the only exception of dead week, and that week falls with July 4th. This year it was a little tricky. July 4th fell on a Sunday, so it was a lot of people not sure if it ended on Sunday or started on Sunday, but just make sure you're always checking our calendar to see when that dead week does start. During that time, you can't do anything with your players. You wouldn't be able to have any team meetings. You wouldn't be able to do any fundraising. It's just a week for them to be away from it, not have to worry about any high school athletics or so forth during that week. Also during June and July, you can have 10 dates of team competition. So if you choose to meet up with another school or 2 or 3 other schools, you can have some competition during the summer. You have 10 dates for that. All right, and here are your open season dates. So like I said, for fall, so the girls golf, your open season is May 1st through the 31st. And then if I have any boys golf coaches on here, your open season would begin December 6th and go until January 26th. And then you would have the 4 days that you're closed right prior to your season starting. So just make sure if you have any questions or you're not sure what you can or cannot do, I encourage you to give me a call or send me an email. I would rather you ask and let's talk about it and make sure you're not going to have any violations. So what are the closed season violations? So if you have one day that you practice during the closed season, that first occurrence would be a $500 fine. And the team would lose 1 day of practice and then be limited to 1 scrimmage. If it's 2 days in violation, $500 fine, the team loses 2 days of practice. You're limited to 1 scrimmage. You cannot host any events and you cannot be the home team in the playoffs. And then when we get to 3 days, if there are 3 days, still the $500 fine is in place. The team would lose 3 days of practice, cannot host any events, and would not be allowed to participate in postseason play. So we want to avoid these at all, we want to avoid these violations. So again, I encourage you, if you have questions, please give me a call here at the office or send me an email. All right, Team Funder, this is a new partner with the South Carolina High School League. So I am just sharing their information, but this is a fundraising company. It gives you the opportunity to it says custom team branded products. So they can actually go online. You kind of set up what they have that they can choose from, and they make it specific to your school with your logo. Basically, people would go online, order the whatever product it is they want, and that product is sent directly to them. In the past, people have ordered all of the orders have come to you all at the school, and then you have to go and divvy them out. Well, this fundraiser company right here is a little bit different. I'm sure our office will be sending out some more information regarding Team Funder, but I am just giving them props today as one of our partners with the high school league. Okay, and moving into our rules of golf. So the rules of golf we follow are the United States Golf Association. They govern our golf competition. The league sponsors a championship in each classification that has at least 12 of its schools participating. If this requirement is not met, schools may enter the tournament of the next higher classification. So for our girls golf, class 3A is combined of 2A and 1A. So they combine up for class 3A. At this time, we do not have enough 2A schools to have a 2A golf state championship. We are getting close. We are getting close. When our classifications meet at the end of August and 1st of September, we'll be having some conversations with them to see if anyone else has added golf for class A and class 2A. But I think eventually we're going to see class 2A state championship coming soon. Just a matter of maybe a year or two away. So we're looking forward to that. And we do offer a state championship in all classifications for boys. So we hope to continue that class A with 12 participants as well. All right, your play dates. Varsity, you have 16 play dates. And remember, this includes any tournaments that you participate in. So you have 16 play dates. You have 2 scrimmages and 1 jamboree. JV teams have 12 play dates, including tournaments, 1 scrimmage, and 1 jamboree. Now, you can participate in a preseason tournament. That would count as one of your play dates, but you can participate in a preseason tournament, and that does count as one of your play dates. Also, if you have a region tournament that does not qualify you for postseason, that would count as one of your play dates as well. So example, class 3A, 2A, 1A, you all have an open tournament. So you don't have to go through region play to qualify, whereas 5A has to go through region play. So the 5A, their region tournament would be considered postseason and would not count as a play date, but 3A and 4A, I think your tournament's an open as well. So those would count towards your play dates. And that's a question as you get in the season. If you need to follow up with me on, please do so. All right, coaching on the course, nothing has changed here. Only one coach is permitted to coach the golfers anywhere on the course. Any player that receives coaching from anyone other than their designated coach is subject to the following penalties. The first offense would be a 2-stroke penalty, and the second offense would be disqualification. And again, you have to remember, a lot of times your players are the ones that are going to be witnessing this. So if they see this happening, they need to be able to call the other player out. If you as a coach witness it, you need to be able to address that player. Don't just be quiet and then call me and say, this is what happened. So-and-so was doing this on the course. You all are the officials out there. You all are the ones that are in charge of following the rules that are put forth. That's anytime you're on the course, make sure we're doing that. All right, regular season matches shall be limited to 9 holes of play. A total of the 4 low player scores will compromise the team score. Tournaments will be 18 holes or part played, and the total of the 4 low player scores will comprise the team score for that round. The team score for a tournament will be the sum of all rounds or parts played. So you can have regular season would just be 9 holes when you're playing regular season matches, and then any tournaments would be 18. Remember scorecards, they should be totaled, signed, and attested. Each player is responsible for their hole-to-hole score. So make sure that they are keeping up with their score as well as the opponent's score. If the player gives a score over what they made on the hole, then that's going to stand. Whatever, if they give something that's over, that score will stand as recorded. If the player gives a score lower than what they made, then that player would be disqualified. So if I made a 4, but I said I made a 5 mistakenly on the card, there's no penalty to me. But if I wrote down I had a birdie and put a 3, then I would be disqualified. So under no circumstances should a player keep his own scorecard. And again, I just talked about this. The player is solely responsible for the correctness of the score recorded for each hole. So make sure your athletes are talking back and forth with whoever's keeping their cards, making sure they're in agreement as they go throughout the match and not just waiting till it gets to the end and having discrepancies. All right. In the event that a match cannot be completed 9 holes, you have to replay it in its entirety or cancel it. So if you're in a regular season match and the 9 holes cannot be completed, you have to decide, hey, we're going to come back and replay it, or we're just going to cancel it. Tournament play, in the event that tournament play must be stopped, players will mark their ball in the appropriate manner where play is suspended. If play cannot continue the same day, the round will begin from the beginning the next day. If play cannot begin again, the score will revert to the 1/2 round that has been completed by all players. And again, remember, all tournaments will be at least 18 holes. And these are in effect, you use these in regular season. These are also in effect for the state championships as well. I know there was a little bit of conversation at the clinic in Greenville on Monday, just some conversations. I don't know if the golf rules coach or the Golf Coaches Association, I don't know if they're going to look at this and look at what we have as our format for postponement and cancellation of play. All right, just some tournament rules. Players from the same school will not be paired together. Pairings will be determined by player position as designated by his coach when application is submitted to the tournament committee. Unlimited substitutions may be made between rounds. And remember, a round is defined as 18 holes. And a team can compete with only 4 players. So if you only have 4 players, you can go, you can compete. You would still be competing for team honors. If that number drops to fewer than 4 players, then the school would be ineligible for team honors, but those individual players that are still remaining, they can compete for the individual honors. All right, this rule has been in place with the caddies, the ride-on carts, and electric pull carts. They are not permitted. The manual hand carts can be used, and I think most of all of our female athletes are using those. And we're seeing it a lot across the boys as well. If there is a reason that you need to request a waiver for this, that has to be approved by the principals prior to the tournament. So it has to be approved by all principals prior to the tournament. It could be some medical condition that the kid needs to use a caddy or use a ride-on cart or so forth, but it has to be approved by all principals. So very important that if you have that situation come up, I'll gladly work with you. But again, it's up to the principals of the schools participating in that tournament as to if it will be approved. And we have had certain situations that we have had some waivers and students were able to participate. Practice on the competition course between rounds is prohibited. Disqualification would result if practice occurred between the rounds. Practice between holes is prohibited. If that were to occur, it would be a 2-stroke penalty. And then if a questionable situation occurs, a player must play a second ball. So play a provisional and request a ruling from the committee at the end of the round. So they would just play 2 balls on that hole, then get back and decide what the situation was, and they would let them know which score to use there. And I just checked the chat to see what's in there. Sarah, we'll take care of you at the very end. Mike, it is varied. Like we had one student, I think, that was on dialysis or something like that. So it was very weak, wasn't able. Another student, I think, did something to an ankle. So that varies. Those are just 2 that I can recall right off the bat. Can girls play on the boys golf team in the spring? If you do not offer a girls golf team at all, so if you do not offer girls golf in the fall, yes, girls are eligible to play for the boys in the fall. Now, girls cannot compete as individuals in the fall and then play with the boys. That would not be allowed. So if you do not offer girls golf in the fall, they are eligible to play for the boys team in the spring. All right, moving on, breaking ties. If we have ties for a position, this will be resolved by a sudden death stroke playoff by the 4 low players on the previous 18 holes. This will begin on the first tee or on the tee as designated by the committee, with all 4 players teeing in the same group, beginning with the number 4 players and progressing in the order to number 1. Individuals would be resolved in the same manner. All right, rangefinders and GPS devices will be allowed in matches and tournament play with the following stipulations. So in each pairing, if any player uses the device, then all players in the pair will have access to it. So if someone in the group has a rangefinder and the other players do not, they can ask to use it or ask for the information to be shared with them regarding, what the distance is to the hole. If the player does not allow other members in the pairing to use when asked, they would be disqualified for serious breach of etiquette. Devices that calculate slope in addition to the yardage are not permitted and will result in disqualification. And cell phones are not to be used on the course. Use of cell phones will result in disqualification. There was some conversations with this as well, because we all know cell phones now, we're able to communicate with watches. So that came up about the Apple watches, the other smart watches and so forth. So that might be another area that we're looking to add a little bit more verbiage here to kind of cover that. But if you suspect someone is communicating through their watch or whatever, you just need to address it with them. Now they can use the GPS device watches that do calculate or that do the distance to the hole. And as I'm getting ready to close out, I do ask that you go to the chat, that each of you go to the chat and you put your name and your school. This will be our last just verification to check attendance. So I ask that you go into the chat, put your name and your school. So we have the poll question as well. All right, so our girls golf qualifier date and sites. So girls golf qualifiers will be October 18th with the exception of class 3A, and that one is highlighted. So class 5A upper will be at, and that is not Waterford Golf Club. I'm sorry, I was supposed to change that. That is going to be actually the Chester Golf Club. So that should be changed to Chester. Make that change right now. Lower State, Shaftesbury Glen, 4A upper, Stony Point, and that's Greenwood. Lower Country Club of South Carolina, and then upper 3A just got confirmed, but they are having to play on the 19th. That's the only available date that Boscobel had. And then lower 3A will be Sherrill State Park, and the qualifiers are an 18-hole event. Please check for your classification as to what your team has to do in order to qualify. So just check that. I know like 3A has a certain score that will have to be met. So you just want to make sure you look at your classification. That will be in the rules and regulations on the website for golf. So just check that as you're getting closer. And then our state tournaments are the 25th and 26th. We are looking for a site for class 5A. Class 4A, Crescent Point Golf Club at May River, and then class 3A back at the Hackler Golf Club, and Seneca will be hosting that. And this information that I shared, it'll be posted, it'll be on the golf page, so you'll be able to refer back to that. Once we get information on these tournaments, we'll post that as well. That has the information on practice rounds and how much it costs and so forth. So you'll be able to locate that on the golf webpage. And I don't know if any of you have been on our new website, but we do have a new website. So it's going to look different if you have not been on there. And if there's stuff we've had it on in the past that you can't find, just let us know and we'll help you with that. And these are just our boys' dates. We're working on that. We'll work with the classifications as we move forward, is getting sites secured. But May 9th would be the boys qualifier. May 9th would be the Class A state championship. And then May 16th through the 17th would be Class 5, 4, 3, and 2A. And with us doing the meeting virtually, and unfortunately, we weren't able to have South Carolina Junior Golf with us at Greenville either. They have been very busy with USGA junior tournaments and being around the state, putting those on. But anyway, they have really good resources. If you go to their website, they have some different links that you can go for the rules of golf. They have some videos that you can share. So if it's a rainy day, you could definitely kind of use some of this for your players and kind of help them understand the rules, especially if you're getting some young new players. So I just recommend you referring to their website. They do help us out at our state tournaments and help with rule interpretations on the course. They will also, if you're hosting a tournament or so forth, don't hesitate to get a contact number from them if you want to utilize as another point person when it comes to interpreting rules. The player would have to have the rangefinder themselves. So if they have it in the group, now the coach can give up one group to have it and they can have it, but you can't be going around and just let's see. And I think everybody else, I think we've got names in here, schools in here. If you have questions, I do ask that you contact me here at the league office. I will definitely do what I can to assist you during this year. We look forward to a great year. No practice is supposed to start tomorrow, and it's going to be nice and hot out there. I don't know how many of you are starting on Friday, but if you do your best to stay hydrated and cool. So, but with this, as long as you have your name in here, this concludes our virtual rules clinic, and good luck to you this year.
Still there?